This is a true story that happened to me back in about the mid-1970s. It was in the dead of winter and bitter cold, around 12 degrees or so outside temperature. The skies were crystal clear, the moon was bright, everything that was frozen stuff glistened and shined in the night, which you could almost drive down the road without your headlights on and still see. I had gotten off work at about 1 o'clock in the morning and got in my vehicle to come home. It was about a 20-mile trip to get home from where I worked. I was really being careful on my driving. I made it a good ways until I turned left off the main highway onto an old country road about 6 miles from where I lived. As I turned left, I realized that the country roads, with all the overhanging limbs and things, the roads were extremely icy and slick. At one point in a curve about approximately a mile down the road, my vehicle just slid off in the ditch. Not deep in the ditch, but just to the edge. I knew that was as far as I was going to be able to make it in my car. Always being prepared, I knew then what was ahead, that it was going to be a long walk home at night. Not having the right footwear, wearing a pair of Western boots is not the best thing on ice. Trust me on that one. I got out of my vehicle, I put my heavy coat on, winter clothes, gloves, and I always carried a handgun in my vehicle. In the country, that's just what we do. I got out, I got everything, took a flashlight, and started walking. Walking on there was just virtually impossible to walk on the road itself. It was just so icy and so slick. I got tired of falling, so I walked to the edge of the road right there where the grass started, and I did better there, so I just started walking. It was so quiet, no breeze. It was just bright. It was a beautiful night. Unfortunately, it's cold, and I knew it was going to be a long walk. So after about 2 miles, I decided to stop, rest my legs, and let me untense a little bit. And as I was standing there, off to the right in the distance into the woods, which was still too dark to be able to see inside the woods very far at all, I started hearing just certain noises coming from the wood. I had kind of squinted my eyes to try to maybe get a better view and to see, and I kept hearing more and more noise in the woods, like something running around, or every once in a while I would hear like a faint growl. Well, needless to say, even from the country and being used to being in the woods at night, even by myself hunting, but this had a unique sound of its own. I wasn't sure what it was. So I was standing there at the edge of the roadway looking into the wooded area. I decided to shine my flashlight, but I took my handgun out first and had it held down to my side. I shined that flashlight in through the woods. It wasn't the brightest flashlight, but it was enough that if you can imagine looking out through there and seeing about 6 or 7 sets of eyes off in the distance in the woods looking at you. I knew right then what was going on, and it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. For the first time, this old country boy was a little scared, because I've, with experience, seen the devastation that a pack of coyotes can do to a person, animal, anything that they're after. I realized that they were watching, most likely stalking me. I didn't know if I was their next meal. I decided I wasn't going to be. So I just started walking. And as I walked, I saw one little small clearing about 20 yards in diameter. I looked out through there with the light being as bright as it is. There they were. They came trotting out all still together and all stopping and looking at me. And And then when I heard a couple of them started howling and stuff, they just like all came in unison. It was an eerie, even a scary sound, because I knew the danger that I was about to face. I only had 6 shots with my handgun and my hunting knife. That was all I had with me. No houses close by to holler for. In those days, there was no such thing as a cell phone. You called from your house. So there wasn't calling anybody. I knew no one was coming down that road anytime soon. And it was about that time that I felt this, not an eerie sense, but a calming sense, just like a warm breeze, real light breeze just came came across the back of me. I had turned real quick to look to see what it was, and there was nothing there. But it was kind of warm. It wasn't cold. And when I turned back to look into the woods, there were already 4 coyotes out to the edge with their heads sticking out of the edge of the wood line, within about 5 feet from me. I swallowed hard, said a little prayer to the Lord, just in case. But I knew 6 of them were going with me, that I was not going to give up without a fight. That warm feeling came across me again. And when I looked at those 4 wolves looking out of the tree line, they were no longer looking at me. It's like they were looking up above me, all 4 of them that I saw. I turned my head real fast to look back behind me, turned the flashlight on, still nothing. I looked back, the coyotes had not moved. That was a little unnerving for me. I didn't understand what was going on or what was happening. But then the coyotes backed off into the woods as I watched them. I had the hammer cocked on my gun. I was ready to fight. And they just eased back into the woods. They did not leave. They still howled and was even more fierce than it was the first time. It was one of the first times in my entire life that I was actually scared. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I also didn't understand that feeling and that spirit that felt like it was with me. For the next 6 miles, and I had to stop several times to rest, because walking and tensing your legs on those icy roads, and then you're tensed up because you don't know when they may just come out and attack you all at one time. It seemed like it took days to get to my house. But within that last quarter of a mile, when I rounded that last turn in our road, I could see our little white house off in the edge. Had about an acre of clear land, so I could see it real well. I could see the chimney. I could see the smoke coming out. And when I had looked across there, I had looked back to my right. I had been keeping an eye on them. They never left, but they never came back to me and approached me. I didn't understand what the coyotes were doing, why they did what they did. But all the way home, it honestly felt like it was about 40 degrees outside. And it wasn't just from the exercise or the stress of walking and things. I do know that. It was that calming sense that I had. I felt protected. I felt like they weren't going to do anything, though I never put my gun away. I always looked, and then I see the front door open up, and I see my dad standing there looking out the door. He was worried about me. He knew about the weather, and he knew the chance and the risk that I was taking to come home. I got home, walked in the front door. My dad opened the door for me, and just before I stepped inside, it just felt real like normal temperature, like 10 degrees. All of a sudden it got a chill as I was coming up on our porch. I turned to look. The cows were no longer there. Nowhere to be found, no sound. And that spirit left, I'm assuming, once it knew I was home safe. I go inside. It's so warm. My dad brings me a cup of coffee and explains to me that he was really worried about me and stuff. And he said, I just want to keep a good fire going. He said, I didn't know if you couldn't make it down this road that I was going to give you another hour, and then I was going to get on the road and try to find you myself. When I sat down, it took me a few minutes just to be able to say anything because of the experience I had just had. I didn't understand, but I was thankful. So anytime that I'm out by myself in the woods, I don't have any fears. But I'm always looking out, and I'm always wondering when I might feel that warm feeling again if I'm out. That protection, that spirit that guided me home stayed with me the whole time. This is a true story, and it was one that I lived and will never forget. Thank you to everyone that listened.